I thought my dad was just a private person. Then I found out what he was hiding from. Growing up, my father had rules that made no sense. Never answer the door without checking first, never tell anyone our real address, never post photos online, and never use the last name on my birth certificate. By the time I was 17, I had lived in 9 different cities, attended 7 different schools, and gone by 4 different names. My brother Caleb barely remembered any of our old apartments because we moved so often that nowhere ever felt like home. Dad checked our phones every week and monitored every account we had, and I thought he was paranoid, maybe mentally ill, definitely controlling in a way that made me resent him more every year. Other kids had Instagram and friends they'd known since kindergarten, and I had burner phones and a father who flinched every time someone knocked on the door. Our mom died in a car accident when I was 7, and Dad said a drunk driver hit her. Uncle Ray disappeared a few years later, and Dad said he moved overseas. Grandma had a stroke when I was in middle school, and Dad didn't let us go to the funeral because he said it wasn't safe to travel. I started noticing patterns that I couldn't ignore because everyone who got close to us died or vanished. I confronted him constantly, saying things like, "I want a normal life. I'm so tired of running from nothing." He always said the same thing, "I'm keeping you safe." He never explained from what. One afternoon I came home and Dad's car wasn't in the driveway and Caleb was at a friend's house, so I searched Dad's room for answers. I found a locked metal box behind winter coats in his closet and picked the lock with a bobby pin. Inside were newspaper clippings, fake IDs with photos of Dad at different ages, a handgun wrapped in cloth, and photographs with red X's drawn through the faces. One photo was my mother, one was Uncle Ray, and one was my grandmother, all crossed out like items on a list. There was a clipping about a wealthy family named the Barlows, offering $500,000 for information about their son Vincent, whose death 20 years ago remained unsolved. I was still staring at the photos when the front door opened, and Dad walked in and saw me on the floor with the box open. His face went white. I held up the photo of my mother and said, "What is this? Why do you have a photo of Mom marked like she's dead?" He sat on the edge of the bed and put his head in his hands. I said, "Dad, talk to me." He looked up with red eyes and said, "I never wanted you to find out like this." I said, "Find out what? Who are the Barlows?" He took a deep breath and said, 20 years ago, I got into a fight at a bar with a man named Vincent Barlow. He threw the first punch, and I hit him back once, but he fell and hit his head on the bar and died before the ambulance came. I panicked and ran. I said, "You killed someone?" He said, "I didn't know who he was until I saw the news and realized I'd killed the son of one of the wealthiest families in the state. They don't want police justice. They want blood, and they've been hunting me for 20 years. I said, "What does this have to do with Mom?" He couldn't look at me when he said, "Her car accident wasn't an accident. The Barlows found her and ran her off the road to send me a message." I felt like the floor dropped and said, "Uncle Ray?" He said, "He didn't move overseas. They found him and made him disappear." I was shaking and said, "Grandma?" He said, "Her stroke wasn't a stroke. They poisoned her." I stood up and said, "So everyone we've ever loved has been murdered because of you?" He started crying and said, "I kept running because I knew if they caught me, they'd kill you and Caleb just to make me watch. Everything I've done has been to protect you." I paced the room trying to process that my entire life had been a lie, that every death I'd grieved had been murder. I said, "What do we do now?" He said, "We pack tonight and leave by morning with new names." I said, "No." He said, "What do you mean no?" I picked up my phone and dialed 911. He lunged for it and I stepped back. I said, "You told me they want to kill you themselves. If you're in prison, they can't touch you. If you confess, they got their justice. This ends tonight." He said, "You can't do this. I'm your father." I said, "You got Mom killed, you got Uncle Ray killed, you got Grandma killed, and you were going to keep running until they killed us too." He stared at me while the phone rang, and then he started crying harder than I'd ever seen. Dad took a plea deal and got 15 years for manslaughter. The Barlows released a statement saying justice had finally been served. We use our real names now, and I haven't looked over my shoulder in months.